Hello and welcome to this week's Q&A. This week I've got two questions which I'm going to respond to, and just to remember that I will change the name if anyone puts a name in. This is all anonymous and it's for the benefit of the person that sent the question in, but it's also to benefit everybody else in the retreat, because so many of these dialogues that are being presented in these questions are underpinned by themes that we all experience. So there is benefit for you here. Have a listen and see what you can take away. So the first question is, I tried to practice the advice given on one of the mini sessions whereby I was in the situation where the conversation was in a heated manner and I felt I was being yelled at. I said to Sam, "Can we take a step back and tone it down?" And his response was, "You are just aggravating me. I've had a really stressful day and you are just poking the bear." So the question is, what is your advice on this one? I feel like he wants me to understand his stressful day. However, I would like him to be more concerned about me, as my anxiety levels are extremely high and I'm finding it extremely hard to get them down. So that's the full question. There are a couple of things in here. The first thing is really congratulating you on taking that step to request that we slow down. I think you should take a step back and tone it down, and particularly focusing on the fact that you use the word we rather than can you take a step back and tone it down. We language is very, very important in conflict or conversation that's starting to get heated, because the minute you say you, point the finger at the other person, you're going to get more defense, more aggression. So well done with that. Can we take a step back and tone it down? And his response was, "You're just aggravating me. I've had a really stressful day and you are just poking the bear." So there's a real accusation there. I suspect that even though you use we language, he has his defense is that response. So with that, I would not react to that. I would say, I understand you've had a stressful day. As I said, can we tone it down? Let's come back to it in a few minutes. Let's just both calm down. I'm going to make a cup of tea or have a shower or whatever, and let's talk about it after dinner. So just take the time. I suspect both of you are already kind of quite agitated at this point, and come back to mind state. If my mind state is agitated, if my mind state is defensive, then my speech and action is going to be that. And this is where you really need to come back to your state. Check in with your state and calm or neutralize your state so you can be clear about connecting to your values, and then decide what you're wanting to say or do next. So that's the first thing. Even though Sam said, "I've had a stressful day," and you're poking the bear, there's an accusation there and a bit of pointing the finger. Just don't react. Just come back to the we statement that you started with. I understand and validate. Then I want to come into this part of the question, which is, I feel like he wants me to understand his stressful day, but I would like him to be more concerned about me and my anxiety. I think there's room for both in here, and this is where couples get positional in that category of conflict about whose problems and pain are worse, who's the most busy, who's the most in demand, whose priorities and needs matter most. That's at play here. Both of you are wanting the other person to support you and soothe you, which is fair enough. Well, that's okay, but we're really wanting both of you to do that. In terms of your anxiety levels, of course, the relationship can inflame them, but I wonder if there's room for you to practice neutralizing and calming activities to get that anxiety to a more manageable level where you're not feeling as reactive. And, we can check in about that if you like. My point about that is, when we're anxious or whatever it is, frustrated, we can't expect the people outside of us to speak and act towards us in a particular way because of that. We can make a request. We can say, "Listen, I'm just letting you know, feeling really anxious. I'd really like it if you could," and then make the request. In this case, it could be something like, "I understand you've had a really stressful day and I really want to hear about that. I'm just feeling pretty anxious today or right now, and I'd like a moment to sort of settle myself before we talk about the day. Would that be okay? Then you go away and you just do a little bit of calming, and then he might go away and do a little bit of de-stressing, and then you come back and you talk about the day. We want to be able to express these emotions, these states and emotions that we're in, without transferring that energy to the other person. We're kind of really wanting to hold that in ourselves. I want to tell you about my anxiety, but not make you feel responsible for it. So I hope that helps. Bit of a recap. Great we language about requesting to step back, or a pause. Take a break, tone it down. Let's tone it down. And if you get a defensive response back from that, just let it go. And reiterate, understand you've had a stressful day, let's just have a break and come back to it. Then the stressful day and the anxiety, but you both need to be in a position to listen to each other and be able to support each other. And maybe you could preface the conversation with that. Listen, I know you've had a stressful day and I'm feeling anxious. How about we really listen to each other in order to support each other with what we're each feeling? Try that one out. Practice that one. Question 2, when practicing self-awareness, balanced thoughts, I struggle to get rid of resentment or defensive thought loops, which affects my ability to find the middle ground. What are some tips to help with this? So, the first thing that I hone in on straight away is the struggle to get rid of resentment or defensive thought loops. We're not trying to get rid of anything. And remember, the more we focus on trying to get rid of something, the bigger it gets. The more I focus on my anxiety and how I don't want that, the bigger it gets. The more I focus on my depressed thoughts and how depressed I feel and how depressing my life is, the more depressing my life gets. The more I focus on resentment, the more my bias feels let down and finds reason to feel resentful. So the practice of self-awareness in this regard, balancing your view, is to notice the resentment and the defensive thought loops as your mind's activity. And you could even relate to it in terms of acknowledging it as a habitual way of thinking or about whatever's happening. Find the middle ground. So it sounds like this is something to do with in conversation in a main relationship. Noticing resentment, noticing my urge to be defensive, because I think resentment is there and then that makes us defensive. And then I notice that and I just don't react, or I don't get hooked by it and do that speech and action from resentment. And again, same as the last question, sounds to me like a little pause could really help here, just to calm your nervous system down from that defensive mode. You're in that early, so look at me, I'm like, got my fists up. The minute you notice that you're in that state, it's unlikely that you're going to be speaking calm and clear speech. And this is where self-awareness is so important, and self-discipline, the discipline to, you don't even have to say pause. You can say, I'm just needing a few minutes. Can you give me a few minutes? And you might just go to the bathroom, go and wash your hands, just take some breath. Or you might just sit there and just, actually that feels really good for me right now. So I've been on the go, but sorry if my speech is quite fast, but I've been fast this afternoon. So you notice just that one breath just really starts to slow me down and make me notice how fast I was going. Back to this, when practicing self-awareness and balanced view, I struggle to get rid of resentment and defensive thought loops. So we're not trying to get rid of it, we're noticing. We're just noticing that mind's activity and the urge to be defensive, which comes from resentment. What does resentment come from? Expectations. If I haven't set the expectations or we haven't got an agreement, then it's not really reasonable for me to be resentful. If I feel let down because I think the other person should have known what to do or say, then I need to check in with myself about that expectation. Thought loops, again, that's a noticing practice. Just noticing my mind going over and over and over it and having the discipline to say, this isn't really good for me. This is not healthy to keep thinking about it. Obviously, I'm really feeling anxious and hurt, and I'm just going to take my time and come back and think about what's happened. I think both of these questions really point towards slowing down. I'm laughing because I just noticed how fast I was going. Not that I'm anxious, but I'm sort of hurrying to get this done and the next thing done. And, you know, I'm really wanting, comes back to self-awareness. I've become aware that I'm racing, and that's not how I want to be here and now. So in this situation, just stay focused on yourself and do your anchoring practice. Think about mind state. When my mind state is calm and clear about my values and my visions and how I want to speak and act towards this person, then I can trust that what I communicate is in line with that. But if my mind state is agitated and I'm feeling defensive, resentful, anxious, stressed, rushed, whatever it is, then my speech and action is going to reflect that state. I think this is the most helpful takeaway for today is the state. Connect to the state that your body and mind is in, and just do some anchoring practice, and then think, okay, what do I want to say and do about that? So that's it for this week's Q&A. Hope that's been helpful. Keep them coming, and I hope you're enjoying your mini sessions and emails and the other mind-body practices in the retreat. Let me know if I can help you with any of it, and that's it for me for now. See you later.